place in a better occupation or better employment in our own economy. Sarawak, right from the very beginning, could not survive on relying on its own domestic market. We have very small population with widespread lands and population scattered over 6,000 settlements, 60% of which will have around about only 30 to 40 families. It's not the best environment to develop the country. But somehow or other we have managed. We have a long-term plan to get 3 tiers of population centers, which will enable us to build up bigger settlement. Our concept is to have 5,000 as the minimum, what we call minimum size economic community all over the place. This kind of concept will not be achievable unless you got one huge driving force to get your economy moving in the same direction. We think that the best way is to enable this kind of freedom is to develop energy-intensive industries. And that's what we tried to do. I took off from the dust the CESCO master plan for hydro potentials in Sarawak, which was done in the early 80s. And it seems to give us enough base from which we can plan for a much more ambitious expansion of industrialization. Based on this approach, we have a very salubrious international environment, namely the rising price of energy, and that fitted very well into what we think is our advantage in inducing industries to come to Sarawak. But meanwhile, we can see that most Sarawakians are now focused on international market as the playground for their future progress. Unlike in Peninsular Malaysia, where you rely quite a lot on domestic market. In Sarawak, we have to specialize on the export market. We touch the timber industry, we have to make it very good. Now we can say we don't have to be scared of Indonesia, which used to dump their own product anytime there is an unfavorable market trend, and we seem to be, thanks God, we have restructured our timber industry. We seem to necessitate the big 7 timber companies to stock up all their products until the conditions of the market improve. Thanks God, they're big enough to do so. But that's because they have specialized so much on the export market. We are now going to do the same thing with palm oil and its byproducts. And what is better is today that palm oil, for all the struggle we had in the 60s and 70s to have a floor price, the price at which you think the minimum price for palm oil can be guaranteed. For all the failure we have on our part to achieve that through normal commodity agreements, are now coming back through the back door by the potential of palm oil to supply our diesel, biodiesel. And this biodiesel, in fact, can have its content of palm oil increase as we plan to see how much we can divert into much more diesel rather than a much more sophisticated product. All these things got to be planned together, and all this complication of plan requires a wide range of trained personnel at various levels, from the top, the graduates or postgraduate people in areas like chemistry, biochemistry, in agriculture proper, in agronomy, in biotech fields, all sorts of things in heavy industries. All these things has got to be planned quite early. And the master plan for this manpower would come out, I hope, by the end of the year, if not early next year, when we finish our special committee on a detailed study of manpower for SCORE. And that is going to be done by a professor who has done the same kind of work to continue with the Australian next phase of development. So Sarawak will have to engage itself in much more in manpower planning with greater sophistication than in the past. When we can do so, then you can see how in the future, in fact, in the immediate future, we're going to have experienced a shortage of even semi-skilled, no need to say skilled manpower. It is temporary while we're waiting for local people to be trained in the same fields. I do believe Sarawak can, in fact, accommodate people as temporary workers for some time, because I think we can absorb them in small numbers as we grow with the program of SCORE. But I think the final answer is to have our own people to be well trained. And that's, I wouldn't say it's a nightmare, it is a real challenge for the future leaders of Sarawak. And I think it is good for us all, because this is the first opportunity where Sarawak can choose what fields of studies they can take without feeling the mismatch of having a talent, no matter how high, that cannot find